Excuse me, sir. I noticed your car is gold. Yes, I love gold. You join me inside the 2021 Acura TLX Type S. It is the return of the Type S name, which originated in Japan on the 1997 Honda NSX, was then brought to the US in 2001 with the 3.2 CL. But we all remember the 2007 TLX Type S, a car I thought looked the business growing up and was so sad when it was discontinued. And we've been without a Type S car from Acura for all that time, but it's finally back on their new TLX Sport Sedan. And we need to see what the Type S name means this time around in terms of exterior styling and interior pizzazz and performance. And importantly, if the TLX Type S is a car shopper should be considering instead of perhaps one of its German competitors. We're going to find that out today on Miles Per Hour. And there it is, the 2021 Acura TLX Type S. This one is painted in the Type S exclusive Tiger Eye Pearl. It's a $500 paint job option. So very golden, with this popping metallic flake on the surface of the paint. I love this color, but not everyone does. And in the live Q&A for this car, I got a great question, and that is this color one that just looks cool for a week and then kind of gets old, or does it look awesome all the time? And I can't fully answer that question because I only have the car for a week, but I will say every time I've come out to a parking lot or opened up the garage and I see this color, I get excited to drive the car. And therefore I think it's successful. But if you want to take the more conservative approach to your paint jobs, there is that Apex Blue Pearl that I had on the TLX A-Spec. If you haven't seen that review, go check it out. And I loved that color too. Same price, $500, still popped, but it was perhaps a bit more palatable every day to every person. Let's talk styling on the TLX Type S, and specifically we'll point out the things that are different about the Type S versus the standard TLX. We'll start with the grille. So you still have that diamond pentagon shape with black gloss surrounds on the Type S. Like all the details on the Type S, they're all going to be in black gloss, the accents. But unlike the regular TLX that has diamonds that are actually filled out, they're like 3D, this one they're pass-through, so it creates 10% more airflow than the standard TLX grille. We've got Type S badging here on the bottom right corner. Standard LED headlights and LED daytime running lights with that, what Acura calls chicane effect to the DRL, so it does this like check mark thing. Very cool, very recognizable as an Acura TLX on the road. Then down here, the corner inlets are now functional. So this part is blocked off up here, but the regular TLX, it's all blocked off. This one actually has pass-through airflow on the bottom part, so it's gonna send cool air to the front brakes and tires. More black gloss for the border to that. Black gloss front chin splitter. And look at all the sharp creases on this hood. So it's an aluminum hood, aluminum fenders, and just hard edge right there down the center, branching off of each side, and then at the corners. And this line kind of just dissolves into the window surrounds. This one right here picks up below the Type S badge and runs towards the taillights. Sharp looking sedan. The wheels are 20 inches as standard on the Type S. You have two options for the designs. The standard no-cost option has many more spokes than this, a little more luxury oriented in its aesthetic, but this has the summer wheel and tire package. So you save 5 pounds per wheel with this 10 spoke, really 5 split spoke design that's derived from the Acura NSX. And they're now wrapped in Pirelli P0 tires, 255 section at all 4 corners, great summer rubber. I like this wheel design quite a bit with a gunmetal finish. It's so much better looking than the standard TLX's wheels, which even in their 19-inch A-Spec form were just so pedestrian. These have that sports car look to them. Red painted brake calipers are also standard on the Type S with Acura spelled out. They're Brembo 4 pistons up front with larger than the standard TLX 14.8-inch front rotors. It's an electro servo braking system, a brake-by-wire system. We'll talk more about that during the driving impressions. I mentioned the Type S badge on the side and the black mirror caps. Body color matching for the lower arms. Matte black window trim. And black gloss for the pillars. Stepping back, you can really see how Acura stressed the rear drive dynamics of the TLX Type S. Even though it is a front wheel drive based super handling all wheel drive system, they really just wanted to make it look sporty. So they pushed the cab as far back as possible, extending that dash to axle ratio. It looks cool. Hard cut down low, and then that crease I mentioned earlier. Add a little flare to the profile. As you get towards the rear, the width of this car really comes into play. And some of it is actual width, some of it is aesthetic or visual width that they've added, and I'll show you how they do that. But this car is longer and wider than its kind of key C-segment rivals, the C-Class, the 3 Series, the Audi A4. And you really see it from a full rear view. So some of the visual width that they've added is by keeping this tight to the body here, to the greenhouse, and then letting this flare out. That just makes it look wider than it actually is. These huge quad exhaust ports really stand out from the full rear view as well. Polished finish, 2 pipes coming off of 1 muffler on each side. And you've got this gloss black diffuser. Type S badge up here on the trunk. And then the LED taillights. These are not on right now, but they have, for the DRLs, the same chicane effect as the front daytime running lights. Black gloss for that trunk lip spoiler. It's a really cool looking car. I'm struggling for words right now. It's a striking, expressive design. Acura's done a great job here. And the Type S accents, especially the wheels and how they fill out those housings, set the tone for the driving experience. Let's go check out that interior. On our way in, we'll see we have keyless entry, so you can leave the key in your pocket, just pull on the door handle to unlock it, to lock it, put your finger on those 3 lines. We have that for the front doors and the rear ones. What do we say to that? Maximum convenience. Opening up and looking inside, I mentioned this Tiger Eye Pearl paint job is exclusive to the Type S, as is this orchid interior color. Sort of an eggshell white. Perforated Milano leather seats with these suede inserts are standard on the Type S. They're 16-way power adjustable, including power adjustable side bolsters. We have Type S embossed on the front seat headrests. Only 2 options for the exterior, the color and the wheel options. Only 1 interior option for the Type S, that is the trim. Here we have the optional carbon fiber. Nice rich weave to that carbon fiber with a gloss surfacing. I prefer it to the standard aluminum geometric-ish door trim that just doesn't do anything for me. This looks cool, and it looks right on a sportier car like this. Other Type S goodies include aluminum tread plates, Type S floor mats with red borders to them, aluminum pedals, and this leather-wrapped flat-bottom steering wheel with perforations at 9 3, nice and thick. And yes, you can get this wheel on the TLX A-Spec, but now it says Type S on the bottom. Aluminum paddles on the back of the steering wheel. Not a ton of travel, and they're not that large, but they get the job done. To speak of material quality, in here we've got injection molding for the upper part of the door, not very exciting, but it transitions to leatherette for the insert here in black, and then for the armrest, more leatherette in orchid with a black contrast stitching that goes all the way up the grab handle. That looks nice. Not so nice is the hard plastic for the insert for the door or for the window switches, but all windows are one touch up down with this little metallic piece at the end. Nice touch. Power folding door mirrors are standard. Down below here, we're into hard plastic though. I wish that was at least injection molded. I also wish that the speaker cover had that metallic finish like this one up here. You do have 2-position memory seats as standard, and then a trunk release button here. Press and hold that for just a sec, it'll pop right up. It's not power closing, but it's nice and light, so easy to close. The trunk itself, we've got 14 cubic feet of space. Pretty good size for the segment. Nice cutouts just behind the wheel arches. Below that, below the floor, we have a tire inflation kit. You don't get a full-size spare. Your battery is going to be below that. And you can fold down the seats, but there's that structural brace right there. So we're going to see how limited it is. You can pull on these tabs, so you don't have to go to the side, pull anything to fold the seats. You can reach in, push with a little force, and the seats fold down. But yeah, with that brace there, whatever you want to pass through has got to be pretty long and low, not tall. No furniture is going through there. Close up the trunk, you've got this handle here. Like I said, it's nice and light, so one quick pull will close that up. Let's hop into the front seats here. And we're going to start up the car to get some air going. Start stop button there. Close up the door. Nice and solid close. In front of the driver, we don't have a digital instrument cluster like we're kind of going to these days. Analog gauges for the tach and speedo with a silver backing and red numbers. The inner part on the speedo is in kilometers per hour, outer part in speed. You can see your oil temperature on the left and your fuel gauge on the right of that TFT display. This part is a bit of a letdown. I can make peace with no digital gauge cluster because these analog gauges are cool. But the TFT display, I want to have a bit more going on. The graphics aren't that sharp, the colors aren't that rich. It's just kind of a letdown. You can flip through some different information on the right-hand side of the wheel here. You've got this rubberized, textured controller. So you can see the super handling all-wheel drive system, how it's delivering power in real time. That's cool. Tire pressure, oil level, navigation, that's standard on the car. Digital speedometer, trip data, driver retention level, and some of your active safety features. You do get a full suite of Acura's, I cannot remember their name for their suite of active safety features. But you get adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alerts, automatic emergency braking. That's all standard on this car. Here are those controls right in here for the adaptive cruise and lane keep assist. Turn on cruise control with that right there. Injection molded and then plasticky airbag cover here. This doesn't scream luxury to me. Left hand side, you've got some other controls for your media. So you can hit this apps button here. That will pop up on the display. And you can go to your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or what other media settings you've got going on. On the left hand side is our turn signal. Little metal feeling finisher there on the outside. Turn signal is going to show up there and on the left. And you, of course, have one touch for that. Your wiper controls on the right-hand side. These stocks feel about average. They don't necessarily feel luxury. Your tilt and telescoping of the wheel is all manual, so you pull down on this lever, and the wheel can go down and up a fair bit and come out quite a lot. So good adjustment for the wheel. And I prefer manual, honestly. It takes too long to use the power controls. Looking at the upper part of the dashboard, trimmed in leatherette with this molding around the gauge cluster. Silver contrast stitch here that continues up onto the passenger side. Then we have an aluminum bar that runs on this lip under the HVAC controls. Textured plastic here over the lip, and then it transitions back to leatherette. Your HVAC controls look a bit economy car, like they're pulled out of the Honda Accord. They didn't upgrade them at all for this Acura luxury product. Therefore, that's a bit of a letdown. But then you do have your ventilation and heating here. Can't do them at the same time. You do have an auto button, however, that will ventilate or heat your seat depending on the temperature you've set, contrasted by the temperature actually inside the cabin. Carbon fiber trim, as I mentioned, with this aluminum border that runs all the way down here towards the center console. That looks nice. Between the carbon fiber pieces, you have piano black, which is going to smudge and scratch, especially because you'll touch it fairly often or your fingers will smudge it because you're getting to the physical start-stop button. Love that. Physical brake hold. Thank goodness they have that. Then your drive selection keys here, which are in a linear format just like the Acura NSX. You've got park, there's a button, reverse, you pull back. That reveals your camera angles here. You do not have a surround view camera system, even as an option in the TLX. You just have this wide view camera system. Then neutral, another button. Drive is a button, hit that and it's gonna go green. I wish that when you hit it again to go into sport powertrain, it would go red or something, some other visual cue that you're in sport powertrain. Instead, you have to look here and nice and small, it's up on the TFT display. Back to park. Then you have your dynamic mode selector. Love this, just how easy it is to use. Crank left, and you'll see what mode you're in. I'm in comfort right now. Crank right, graphics change, now I'm in normal mode. Crank right one more time. You can hear the baffles and the exhaust open up. We're in sport. Crank and hold. Now we're in Sport Plus. This is a Type S exclusive drive mode. And then if you hit the middle, you're in individual mode. To set individual mode for your preferences, you press and hold the center. You don't have to hunt around in the infotainment. Then you can set your engine response, steering, comfort of your suspension or stiffness, whether you want your start-stop system on or off, and the cabin lighting. There are 27 different accent lighting themes to the TLX Type S, 24 of which you can customize, and then 3 of which are tied to your drive mode. So let's go back to normal mode. Love the physical volume knob with neural finish on it and physical seat controls. And now we're getting into the Acura True Touch infotainment system on this 12-inch widescreen orientation. This system took me a while to get used to. I've now experienced it on a few different Acura products, and I've gotten better at it. It's still a little finicky. So here's how it works. You press and drag your finger to certain zones of the screen, and as long as your finger is held in that position, it'll hold with it. If you lift up your finger accidentally or on purpose, it will go blank again. It won't hold your selection. You can customize the screen such that the different zones, top left, bottom right, top right, are your most commonly used zones, and that's how I would do it, such that you're not having to do these maneuvers. You're just kind of pressing top left and you're getting to navigation, or bottom left and you're getting to home, or however you want to set it up. It is a natural process, so that's how they do it in computer speak. So if you swipe left, it's going to go right on the screen. Swipe right, it will go left. You have this other zone over here for these 3 selections. You can have your clock, media information, and navigation. Again, you can get used to it. It doesn't really bother me all that much. You can switch these 2 modules at any time. It's fine. A nice place for your arm to rest as you're going through the different selections here or using the True Touch system. Wireless smartphone charging pad is standard on the TLX Type S. Here is your key. You have Acura logo and Type S on the front, an aluminum brushed finish on the bottom. Nice heft to the key as well. Lock and unlock and trunk release. Panic button, and you do have an engine start stop if you hold that after hitting lock. Aluminum border to the cup holders. Center console in the orchid leather color. It's actually leatherette material with the contrast stitching there. Open it up, and you have 2 USB ports, standard USB-A's, not USB-C's, a DC socket. Pretty nice large cubby. You do have to plug in, that's why I have the cord in there, to use the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto system. I'll show you some B-roll of that. And now with all that, let's go to the rear seats briefly, just to see how those look. Doors open nice and wide. And while I mentioned that there's not a lot of pass-through functionality because of the strut brace, You can still, with the seats folded down, put things in here and not worry about scratching up your leather. You just have a fabric backing here. That's useful. I mentioned the one-touch windows up, down, and the windows go all the way down. Nice solid feel to that door handle. I wish some of the carbon fiber trim from the front made its way to the back. But alas, we have leatherette with contrast stitching here, that hard plastic, injection molding, more leatherette in here. Let's hop inside. All right, so at 6 feet tall, that's my driving position. This is how much knee room I've got. Just a little bit, about 1.5 inches. And the foot pockets are very narrow, so I can't slide my feet too far under and decrease the knee angle. So instead, they're kind of uptight to my body here. You have a leather wrapped storage behind the seats. This is all hard plastic. This is back to the leather. You have air vents, thankfully, but no third zone of climate control. No USB-Cs or USB ports back here, or even a DC socket. You're gonna have to ask the front passengers to spare one or two if there are two back passengers. So there aren't even 4 ways to charge your device. Well, technically there are. Okay, so you've got the wireless smartphone charging pad, 2 USBs, and then a DC socket. You can make it work. I just really wish, for convenience sake, they had some USBs back here. You do have a center console that comes down with cup holders and a little storage area in here. And let's look at headroom. So at 6 feet tall, again, my head just barely clears the roof, which is in this black fabric. You've got your grab handle, you've got a place to hold your laundry, but not a lot of other stuff for rear seat passengers. And with that done, pop open the fuel door. Capless fueling, thank you, Acura. All that's left now is what? It's our big bottle test. Let's see if we can find a spot in the Acura TLX Type S, starting with the cup holder up front. Oh, so close, but it's not gonna fit. Center console, you're up next. Maybe at a bit of an angle. No. Closed but no cigar. Door pocket, your only hope. Huh? Okay, well, you can kind of negotiate it like that, and it'll stay. So we've got a technical pass for the TLX Type S on our big bottle test. And with that, we're gonna rev it up. Well, let's go to sport mode for that. That's better. And I'm gonna ask that if you've been enjoying this video, that you like, comment, and share it. And let's get to the drive. All right, it's time for some fun. We are going to do a launch control in the TLX Type S, and though the car doesn't have an official launch control system, not a button you press or anything like that, we can simulate it by going into Sport Plus, holding right the dynamic mode selector, and then simply holding your foot hard on the brake, giving it gas, building up to around 2,000 RPM, and letting go of the brake. And there's 60. No drama, of course, off the line because it is an all-wheel drive system. Acura's super handling all-wheel drive system, now in its 4th generation, can send up to 70% of the power to the rear wheels, and then will truly torque vector. By that I mean not brake-based torque vector, not braking the inner wheel to prompt rotation, but actually sending power up to 100% of available power left to right. And so our 0 to 60 time, I didn't time it myself, but Acura says it's around 4.5 seconds. And from the seat of my pants, that felt a little slower than that. Independent tests have seen around 4.5 seconds, maybe even slightly quicker. So you'd probably see it as well, but that felt higher 4-second range. But still plenty quick. The engine in the TLX Type S is a 3-liter double overhead cam V6 paired with a single twin scroll turbo, making 15.1 psi of boost, and therefore the car makes 355 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, and 354 pound-feet of torque, way down from just 1,400 RPM, all the way up to 5,000 RPM. So a nice, broad, and early peak torque availability there. We're now going to go through some twistier bits, so we're going to stay in Sport Plus drive mode as we do this and test out not just that engine, but the 10-speed automatic gearbox. That is an in-house transmission from Acura, torque converter, 10-speed. They said they've messed with it in the TLX Type S. The shifts are quicker. %40 quicker in manual mode, 30% quicker in this Sport Plus drive mode. Certainly holding out those gears, downshifting promptly as you get on the brakes. We're going to test out this turning radius here. How tight is it? Yeah, pretty tight. Power out of a hole is nice. Oh, the brakes, nice initial bite, short pedal travel, and this variable ratio steering rack means that it requires less input in Sport Plus drive mode to get the wheels to turn, and they've also quickened it compared to the TLX base spec, and I feel that. Man, I like these brakes. It's especially impressive to me how much I like these brakes because they're not actually connected to anything. The Electro Servo braking by wire system, borrowed from the Acura NSX, means that it's just sort of simulating or guessing as to how much braking resistance and bite you need based on your driving behavior. Back to the rack for a second. The quickness helps the car feel much smaller and more agile. And though there's a slight bit of deadness on center, the resistance builds nicely through the corner, giving you the essence of direct feedback, even though it's not actually there. Another thing Acura has done to really make this car feel smaller than it actually is by stiffening up significantly this chassis. 13% more rigid torsionally, thanks to stiffer front and rear anti-roll bars, thicker rather, and 40% stiffer front springs, along with all the underbody stiffening and the bracing. It really holds its body motions in admirably. Also admirable is this transmission. The shifts are noticeably quicker than the 10-speed I experienced in the TLX, the regular one. I just had so many complaints with that, especially in manual mode. But this Sport Plus mode gives it much more of an edge in automatic mode, and we'll see how it does in manual mode later, but it just makes it a much more enthusiastic driving experience, the changes they made to this transmission. And that super handling all-wheel drive system really getting the power down. You can feel it pushing out on that outer wheel, slingshotting it out of corners. This is fun. Lots of fun. Now we are going to go into manual mode just by pulling on the paddle on the steering wheel. There is no dedicated manual mode, which does kind of bother me. I wish there was one, so it would hang out there. See, right there already, it went back to auto mode before I could shift. And it's still upshifted for me before I got to red line. That's somewhat frustrating. Watch, you'll see it upshift before I actually pull the paddle. Well, that was like the same time because I knew it was going to happen. But the shifts are quicker. Notably, they are quicker, but that still kind of frustrates me. Watch. Yep, I didn't even go near the paddle. It shifted right around 6,000 RPM, and still, instead of waiting till 6,200 when the red line hits. I don't like that. If you sort of bake in that expectation that it's going to shift for you before red line, you can get around it. That just leaves one final element of performance, and that is the soundtrack, which is certainly better than the standard TLX and its 2.0 Turbo 4. But really only in Sport Plus. In the other drive modes, the soundtrack is just wah. There's nothing there. Sport Plus gives it the emotion that is required of something that purports to perform in the way it does, and then in fact does. And I know Acura is synthesizing this sound and bringing it in through the speakers, and I try to just forget that. Let's take a breather now, though, from the urgency and excitability of Sport Plus drive mode. Just go into comfort drive mode and see how these adaptive dampers treat you on the daily. The steering, I noticed immediately, lessens up its urgency, requires more effort into the wheel to turn it, and that's what you want for more relaxed drive. The throttle tip in is softer, and the ride quality instantly eases up. So these adaptive dampers are doing their best to eat up the punishment of the road. And you know, this isn't my only experience behind the wheel in the TLX Type S. If you've seen my POV test drive and night drive, I've done a fair bit of time behind the wheel. And in all the aspects in comfort mode, in all the environments in comfort mode, the TLX really just strikes that balance so nicely of still feeling sporty, but being amenable to your daily tasks, going up and down driveways and over bumps and through little ruts in the road. It just calms down so very nicely. And that's saying something, considering the car is riding on 20-inch wheels now, and is all that additional stiffening that Acura did to the body. For it still to ride like this, while still being, you feel the bumps, you know it's still a sporty sedan, but it's not hurting you to drive it. It's also really rather quiet in this cabin, and at freeway speeds, it really checks that box of being respectably subdued for the cabin noise. And that engine, as we can hear, just disappears completely. It's just gone. The seat is also remarkably comfortable. As I mentioned, you do have the power adjustable side bolsters, so I tighten it up for those tighter corners, and now I've loosened them up. And the support from the cushion, the ergonomics of the seats are excellent. Visibility is also great. I mean, we're dealing with a sedan. We don't have a massive seat pillar like an SUV to see around, but we do of course have blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, parking sensors, auto emergency braking, all those things to help you out. And then when you're in a highway driving environment, you've got adaptive cruise control and steering assistance. Two other standard things as part of Acura Watch. I remembered the name. Acura Watch, their suite of active safety features, and they work very well to keep the car centered in the lane and following just the right distance from the car in front of you. It goes toe-to-toe with its German rivals in terms of the safety features and the ride quality and the performance. But let's talk about those competitors more in depth. The starting price for the 21 Acura TLX Type S is going to be $53,300, and that's going to come fully decked out as you see this one, except for the few options I pointed out, including the paint color, the Tiger Eye Pearl or Apex Blue Pearl, or any of the other special paint colors, the carbon fiber trim, and the summer wheel and tire package. That brings up this car's price to $55,300. And that's a pretty darn good price when you think about what it competes against. And this car, as I mentioned, is a bit of an oddball. It's slightly larger and wider than the C-segment cars like the 21 Audi S4. That one's going to start at just under $51,000. It's going to make 349 horsepower. The 0 to 60 time for that one is going to be in the low to mid 4-second range. And its fuel economy, I didn't mention that for the TLX Type S. Fuel economy of this car is 19 city, 24 highway, and 21 combined. The S4 gets 23 combined. So it's a little quicker to 60, and the fuel economy is slightly higher for that one, though its trunk space is notably smaller. Then we've got the Cadillac CT5-V. So that's a little larger than the Audi S4, but more close to the dimensions of the TLX Type S. That one's going to start at the cheapest of the bunch at just under $49,000. It's going to make 360 horsepower, about the same as this. 0 to 60 also about the same at 4.6 seconds, and the fuel economy is tied with this at 21 combined MPGe. This vehicle also competes with a whole segment of these sporty sedans like the Kia Stinger GT and the Infiniti Q50 Red Sport, but I also want to focus on the BMW M340i xDrive. That, for me, has been the segment leader in terms of performance and comfort and tech and all the other good stuff that you expect at this price point. But its price point is higher. It's $57,500 for the xDrive I version of that vehicle. And it makes 382 horsepower, so a lot more power than this. 0 to 60 is also quite a bit quicker at 4 seconds flat, and the fuel economy for that one is somehow 25 combined MPGe. The trunk size is also on that car is huge. It's 17 cubic feet of space. And I'll say this, the BMW M340i still holds the edge. Even after driving the TLX Type S, it still holds the edge as a more buttoned up sports sedan. It's still not at that class of the M3, and there's reason for that, and neither is the TLX Type S. It's just very assured in the way it goes around a corner. The power is intoxicating. There's quite a bit of it, and the fit and finish of the material quality is a little bit higher than this car. So I'm gonna have to keep the M340i xDrive at the peak of the segment for me. But it is more expensive. If you add on any options to that, that quickly rises above $60,000. So if you can't afford that car, the TLX Type S puts the hurt, seriously puts the hurt on the Audi S4 and the Cadillac CT5-V. I think it's more fun to drive than both of those cars. It's better looking. I think it's the best looking car of its class. It's just so striking, and inside and out, it looks really, really cool. The handling dynamics are there. It, like I said, is not as tightly put together as that M340i. The interior, I've got some little niggles. I wish that the TFT display was better resolution, sharper graphics. I wish the TrueTouch system was easier to use like BMW's iDrive system. I wish there was a head-up display. I wish there was a surround view camera system. But putting those things aside, and some of the buttons feeling a little more economy, putting those things aside, this vehicle it's just better than the S4. It's more fun to drive, it's better looking. I would rather have this one on a daily basis than that S4, and the same goes for the Cadillac CT5-V. So again, if you cannot afford the peak, the BMW M340i, the 21 Acura TLX Type S is not going to leave you wanting in any regard. And I'm so excited for the new TLX or the Type S versions of Acura models to come. First and foremost, that MDX Type S, because I liked the MDX, but I was just hunting for a Type S version. So with all that said, TLX Type S very much gets a thumbs up for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this in-depth review, and I will see you guys again next time. Until then, Sport Plus. A lot of cranks, there we go. Sport Plus.